Hello students, welcome back to the channel Yanimam. Today we learn about a topic which name is Night of the Scorpion, written by a Indian poet Nissim Ezekiel. The Night of the Scorpion, which was published as a part of the exact name demonstrates a new and amazing aesthetic of Ezekiel's poetry, whereas his early poems conform to a strict meter and rhyme. Later poems, like Night of the Scorpion, adopts a nature colloquial's meter and tone. This poem was published in a time when Ezekiel was making a deliberate attempt at formal inventions by using a loose, seminal, free verse structure for his narrative poems. Additionally, Ezekiel stops the putting capital of the beginnings of each line, which allow his later poems to follow the much more easily on the page. This fact that Ezekiel distances himself from formal poetic conventions does not imply a lack of care when it comes to the form of Night of the Scorpion. In fact, Ezekiel makes deliberate choice about line breaks, enjambments, voice, chronology, and tone in this poem, which gives it the effect on the reader that make it so famous to begin with. There is only one line break in this poem, which occurs right after the speaker's mother is realized from her suffering. After 20 hours, it lost its sting. My mother only said that, "Thank God, the scorpion picked on me and spared my children." This line shows the break, a little break in the tension of the poem, and endows the conclusion, which acquit depth. The tension in the poem before the line break comes from the source. Firstly, that the speaker's mother is suffering with the little prospects of relief, and the second aspect is the tension that the speaker holds between personal crisis and mocking social observation. While the personal crisis is clearly on the surface of the poem, this mocking social commentary is evidenced through the speaker's tone. The speaker in this poem, who inhabit a perpetual between the little boy watching his mother suffer and the older man looking back upon that memory, release in the event of the crisis, is the calm and detached manner. The conclusion, which the speaker release in the scenes encourage and that even alarming for the reader. Even so, the speaker moves slowly through the event of the poem in one long stanza, without break and hurting, and it seems unbothered. This emotional detachment let the speaks and directly to the reader, who understands right away what Ezekiel means without having a judgment and the emotional pain over the suffering mother. When the speaker addresses the presents, we find a tone that we often see in collected works. Nissim Ezekiel, sardonic, and the mocking gaze, which is the gaze of an insider, that is, non-slaves, and the distance from his subject. In this poem, Nissim Ezekiel irony dramatized and the peasants as well as the speaker's father's supervision in their departure and attempts to save the speaker's mother. The speaker does not see the peasant in a positive light and instead compare them to the swarms of fleas, and in their departures to help his mother. Their mixture of Christianity and Hinduism allow for the slight confusion, as they pray to God for the mother's willings and yet also hope for the best in her reincarnations, and the speakers highlights how futile their spiritual effort were in helping his mother. My mother twisted through the throw, groaning on a mat. While this perpetual thus reflects a slight alliance to the speaker is looking down on the peasant for believing that their beloved is also indicates the religion and the culture and the diversity that India's hold. In this way, Night of the Scorpion is the quaintly Indian poem in that it shows the meeting of words and through the sense of communities and ties and after a specific disasters event. Even though Night of the Scorpion does not use the strict formal structure that Nissim Ezekiel had used in this earlier poetry. This does not mean that the poem is not rhythmic but musical, and that the enjambment of the line caused this poem to flow in a large first stanza, and this helps to the build tension and make of the large block of the text easier and more pleasant to read. The culprits, careful variations, and the rhythm throughout. Night of the Scorpion helped Nissim Ezekiel achieve different emotional effect. Finally, this poem communicates a tension between the urban living and the natural world that the Ezekiel returns to the again and again in this work. The speaker community, which was lived in close together and keep itself informed about its residents, and rose up in this work to surround the mother as she burned. The antagonist of the poem is Scorpion, who is forgiven by the speakers very early on since he was indoors simply for subdivisions 10 hours. To 10 hours is a large period of time of steady rain and had driven him to the culture beneath the sake of rice. In this way, the true fact that evil is the rain and which devours draws the scorpion indoors and beat down upon the speakers and his family. Throughout their ordinal more candles, more lanterns, more night airs, and more insects, and the endless rain. Like monsoon madness, the natural world is a force of its own on in the Night of the Scorpion and directly responsible for the all of the characters' trouble. In this poem, the Nissim Ezekiel wants to convey a message which is the speaker tells a story from his childhood and which his mother was bitten by a scorpion. This poem begins with a simple declaration. I remember that the night of my mother was stung by a scorpion. The line number first and second. The scorpion had entered the speaker's home because it wanted to hide from the rain. When it bit the speaker's mother, it was hiding beneath the sack of rice, and the speaker describes the incidents in which the scorpion sting his mother without maintaining his mother at all. Instead, he focuses on the scorpion that what he did immediately afterwards, parting with his poison and flash of diabolic tail. And in the dark room, he risked a rain again, the line number 5 and 6, 7. Rather than stick around and look at the scene that he had caused, the scorpion ran back outdoors. After the speaker's mother was bitten, he noticed and that poor people went to his mother's sides like swarm of flies, buzzing with the Christianity and the hoping to kill one of their vision of Satan. The meaning of line number 8. The peasants look for the scorpion in their hands and knees with lanterns. Their wish is to find the scorpion quickly because they believe that every moment of the scorpion makes without getting killed affected and the speaker's mothers. With every movement that the scorpion made, his poison moved in mother's blood. They said the meaning of line number 16 to 18. The peasants because begin to spears good wishes for the speaker's mothers, hoping that the scorpion will die that night or at least sit still. that the sin of her past life will be burned away and that she may return to an even better life in her next life because of her suffering. In the beginning of the prayers, good wishes for the speaker's mother, hoping that the scorpion will die. The peasant of the continues making wishes for the speaker's mother, wishing that the forces of the evil night and be diminished by the speaker's mother's pain, that they sat on the floors around the mothers, hoping that the scorpion's bite would purify her with the peace of understanding on each faces. As well as the more people come to visit the speaker's mothers and the speaker takes in his surrounding, more candles, more lanterns, more nightmares, and more insects, and the endless rain. The line number 30 to 31. And the speaker's mother, obviously, it all spent this time suffering and twisted on a mat. And the speaker turned his attentions to his father, and who he describes as the skeptic and the rationalist, the line number 34, that the speaker notes that even his father is making an effort to help his mother in any way that he knows how, which means turning towards that which he without and with the otherwise believed, trying every course that the blessing, power, mixture of her hyperbrid. The line number 35 to 36. The speaker's father even lit the bite of the fire of an attempt to remove the poison. The speaker's mother suffering for 20 hours, and her only response at the end of the poem, it was at her gratitude that it didn't happen to anyone as in their family. Even my mother only said that the scorpion picked on me and spared my children. The line number 43 to 50. And this poem's a poetic device of the night of the scorpion. This poem employs various poetic devices through the poem written in free verse. The first poetic device is imagery. The Nissim Ezekiel used lots of imagery in this poem, like heavy rain for 10 hours, like descriptions of the scorpion, description of the village people in the night are some of them, like 10 hours of shady rain, steady rains, and to culture beneath the sake of rice. And the second is flash of demoblics and the tail in the dark room. And the third is throwing ant scorpion shadow on the mud-backed walls. And the fourth is my mother twisted through the true and the groaning on a mat. These all 4 points describe a imagery point device. And when the author describes the shadow of the villagers at night against the walls resembling a gaunt scorpion, it shows how fearful he was of the scorpion as a child, and especially at the particular night in his fear, whether he saw peasants and the fearsomes and has a resemble to the scorpion. And the second poetic device is the simile. Simile is a figure of speech that compared two unrelated things. There was a simile used in this poem when the village arrived at the author's home. At once they hired here to the news, and the peasants arrived in large numbers compared to the swarms of the files. For example, the peasants comes like the swarms of flies. This beautiful comparison creates an instant image that the reader's mind in that emphasizes the numbers of buzzing nature of the peasants. And the third poetic device is the personification. Personification is a figure of speech that attributes human qualities to objects or things. In this poem, the author's father poured and the paraffin upon the bitten toe of the mother and set it on the fire. And in this line, the poem depicts and the flames finding on the mother and consuming her blood. For example, poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe. the flame feeding and on my mother. This line shows us a personification of poetic device. And the fourth poetic device is irony. When the pain of the sting subsides after 24 hours, the mother thanked God that the scorpion bitten her and they sprayed her children and saved her children. Despite her suffering, the mother is grateful that her children were not harmed, highlighting her selflessness. For example, thank God. The scorpion picked on me and spared my children. This line shows a best example of irony. And the fifth poetic device is repetition. Repetition is used communities, prayers, and the belief of superstitions. For example, may he sit still, they said. May the sin of your president previously breathed. They said, may you suffering declares, and the misfortunes they said. This phrase is repeated 5 times in the poem, and the peasants and the village tries to console the mother's telling that the poison would cleanness and the sin of her previous birth. It would declares the suffering and the misfortune of her next birth. It would purify her blood and so on, as well as that the symbolism also used in these literary devices helps to make this free verse poem an interesting reading. Thank you so much for listening. Yanimam.